Good morning, Group A, Alpha Group. I am looking at your presentation. Hopefully you'll be seeing your presentation as well, so I want to start giving some feedback. First page, pretty unassuming. Second page goes to the presentation. I like. It pretty much outlines exactly what you're going to do. The only thing I've noticed so far is just not a lot of visuals per se, but that's okay, to each their own, as long as you're trying to get to the point. I like how you start off by indicating you're going to really kind of go into depth into claims. So I think that's a good idea. You outline very specific and you give the students something, your peers something to notice that they need to focus on. And it meets my 7 plus or minus rule, which is fantastic. You go into a simple definition, another simple definition, another simple definition, and a final simple definition. And then you get into a general definition. Claims are assertion of a right. You give brief examples there in relation to critical thinking. So I think that's good. So let me go back right quick. When you give your simple definitions, you're not necessarily giving examples. I think examples would help strengthen your presentation points right here, whether it's imagery, whether you're using some verbal example like I'm doing with your presentation, or something to really to make sure that they understand the point that you're trying to make. So that's what I would say about those initial examples. In relation to critical thinking, I think it's great to tie it into the actual class representation. So inside of critical thinking, for instance, we research, analyze, and see if there is any reputable information when verifying a claim. That's a good example. I'm not sure if it is a strong example to relate claims. I think that's kind of another definition that may be a bit, not necessarily over the head, but something that's not an everyday subject matter. I'm always emphasizing talking about critical thinking in your everyday life. So that's another way to put it, but you may want to add another example. I like how you put its use inside of critical thinking. I think the critical flows allows for us to look further into the claims and procedure. This actually occurs through conversation debates. Okay, good. That's a good example. And what I would suggest there is perhaps a more poignant example. Give you something specific. Process of a claim. We asked appropriate questions. Okay, good. What I would say on this one, I would probably say bullet point or give like a heuristic, something like, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. I think that would clarify a little bit better. When you're talking about process, you're talking about procedures. So you want to talk about order. And you want to make sure that if it's important, as opposed to aspects of the process, if it's important of an order, then you should emphasize that. Definition of a fact. You kind of immediately go into another transition, so into the next point of your presentation. Perhaps a visual cue or something that would be real good. Or in between your claims conversation versus your fact conversation, you may want to put in some type of exercise activity. And I think I recall it being at the end, but FYI for you, it's just an option, another opportunity to really work on the points of understanding facts while it's still fresh in their minds before you get into another actual subject. Hence, that's why I say if you put in more examples in your claims discussions earlier, it will probably be a little bit better. But that's a suggested process, up to you. Let's talk about facts. Facts is something that occurred or exists. Good point. On a side note, also information must be okay. If it's a side note, make sure that it is related. So normally when you say a side note, it's talking about an alternative meaning. So if you're not trying to give two alternative meanings, or maybe you're trying to pull in some information together, I'm not sure if I would phrase it that way. If it's important to know, then use it. If it's not important to know, then don't. Otherwise, make sure you distinguish something if you want to put on a side note. It's either important to include it, so don't make it a side note, or it's not. Misbeliefs about facts. Okay. If scientific hypotheses are not facts, what are they? So all you said is it's a misbelief. And then you say scientific hypotheses are not facts. So though we've covered scientific hypotheses in class a little bit, you can't assume that people are going to remember the presentation or go back and do their own research on it to make sure that they understand what it is. So if it's important to mention, you need to clarify how it is not a fact. And therefore, you want to make sure they understand what a scientific hypothesis is, and therefore equating how it is not a fact. The importance of facts in critical thinking. For example, you don't, such as so-and-so, good points, good points. Timing of the project. Okay, so this is where you try to use your example. Without getting too far off topic, we as a class should analyze this chart convincing views as a way of discerning the differences between claims and facts. So I'm assuming next that you're going to go up and talk about 9/11. This is where it puts me in the presentation, and you're going to distinguish what's a claim and what's a fact. So now you're talking about claims and facts as far as the differences. You've kind of set the presentation up, and now you're going to kind of help people identify by using this example. That's a good strategy to use. I don't think you gave enough examples of facts in your presentation before you start trying to do a comparison analysis in your presentation to help educate them on what it means between claims and facts. That's just me. Religious experience. What category do you feel religion falls under? Claims or facts? Okay, claims or facts for scientific findings. Intelligent design. I believe last week's module for week 4 is intelligent design based on facts or claims. Bias, watch your capitalization right there. You want to be consistent. That's just me. Are connected to claims through unknown influences. Personal claims that I have heard. Okay, that I have heard. Who is I? This is a group presentation. You don't want to give the simplest that this is an individual fact. It's either a group presentation or you indicate one of my team members, X, said so and so about my presentation. Worth mentioning again. It's proven. It has to be proven. What's worth mentioning again? It is what? Claim or a fact? I know what you're referring to, but don't assume. It's important to note that claims are opinionated statements. So you see how you indicate the word claim here? You didn't include that for facts, so keep that in mind. In conclusion, we must acknowledge, encourage debates. This is a great example of critical thinking. And then it's over. So that's good. I think you can bring it home a little bit better. Visuals would not hurt, or verbal explanation would not hurt this presentation. Or even if you give them some additional links so they can do their own research. You always should indicate where you got your facts from. So therefore, it would not hurt you if you cite your references and your sources at the end to give them something. So in the event they want to go get more information to do their own study to help them write their papers, that's what you would want them to do. Or give them some activities and exercises of what they can do in order to help them learn things better. You always want to give them those tools. That's my recommendation for your presentation. It's very good. Heed my recommendations accordingly. Take them or leave them. It's entirely up to you. But don't forget, you're teaching the class. Have a great one. Thanks a lot. Good job.